Desert monoliths reveal world's oldest architectural plans. Engravings found in Jordan and Saudi Arabia appeared to match nearby ancient megastructures known as desert kites as seen from above. Massive prehistoric stone structures found in desert landscapes from Saudi Arabia to Kazakhstan have baffled archaeologists for decades. Each can stretch for up to a few miles and resembles a kite with tail strings in overall shape. Recent studies have built a consensus that the so-called desert kites were used to trap and kill wild animal herds. But how ancient hunters conceived and perceived these grandiose structures has remained a mystery. The kites in their entirety are only visible from the air, said Armand Crassard, an archaeologist at the French National Center for Scientific Research. Even with our modern ways of envisaging our landscape, it's still difficult for us archaeologists, scientists, scholars to make a proper map. Dr. Crassard and his colleagues were overjoyed in 2015 when they found two stone monoliths with precise depictions of nearby desert kites in Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Engraved between 7,000 and 9,000 years ago, these representations are by far the oldest known to scale architectural plans recorded in human history, the team reported on Wednesday in the journal PLOS One. They also highlight how carefully planned the desert kites may have been by the ancient peoples who relied on them. It's mind-blowing, Dr. Crassard said, to know and to show that they were able to have this mental conceptualization of very large spaces and to put that on a smaller surface. Over the last decade, as part of a project called Global Kites, Dr. Crassard and his colleagues have used satellite imagery to identify more than 6,000 desert kites of various shapes and sizes across the Middle East and West and Central Asia. Other researchers have uncovered stone engravings depicting these man-made enigmas while doing surveys and excavations. But, speaking of the engravings found previously, Dr. Crassard said you couldn't relate these drawings to a specific kite. When they found the two kite depictions in southeastern Jordan and northern Saudi Arabia during field surveys, the archaeologists knew that they were special. At first, they noted the presence of three defining kite features. There were tail strings which represent more or less contiguous lines of stones. These converge into a walled enclosure resembling the kite's body, and along the body's edges, pits had been dug. Archaeologists suspect that groups of animals such as gazelles followed these stone lines or were chased along them before being funneled into the enclosure, where hunters killed the animals and used the strategically placed pits to trap those attempting to escape. Very quickly, the team recognized that these engravings matched the shape and structure of kites seen nearby. In southeastern Jordan, for example, the tail lines of kites curve as they converge into enclosures, a peculiarity also visible on the engraved stone. When we look at the satellite and aerial images that we take in the field, it's like a drawing of the actual kites in this area, said Mohammed Tarana, an archaeologist at Al Hussein bin Talal University in Jordan and an author of the study. Mathematical models, too, indicated that the kites in the Jordan-Saudi region where the team worked were the closest match when researchers compared the geometry of the two engravings with a total of 69 kites from a variety of regions. Shape comparisons with such nearby kites also revealed that the depictions were to scale. The researchers inferred the ages of the engravings by using geological dating tools to determine how long ago the corresponding local kite structures were built. What remains unknown is whether these depictions were prepared as blueprints to aid in the construction of the kites or served as maps for hunters. The engravings could also be symbolic commemorations of the desert kites, which may have been an important part of the cultural identity of the ancient peoples who made and used them, said Wael Abouaziza, an archaeologist with the French Institute of the Near East in Jordan and an author of the study. York Rowan, an archaeologist at the University of Chicago who was not involved in the study, said the engravings cited in the paper are a great find. He called it remarkable that people on the ground were precisely depicting things that can only be seen fully from above today. Finding this mental mastery of space opens a new window into the minds of these ancient hunters. For almost a century there has been debate on the functional interpretation of desert kites. These archaeological structures have been interpreted as constructions for animal hunting or domestication purposes, sometimes for both but with little conclusive evidence. Here, we present new evidence from a large-scale research program. This unprecedented program of archaeological excavations and geomatics explorations shows the unequivocal and probably exclusive function of kites as hunting traps, considering their gigantic size as well as the significant energy and organization required to build them. These types of traps are called megatraps. Our research is based on 5 different field studies in Armenia, Jordan, Kazakhstan and Saudi Arabia, as well as on satellite imagery interpretation across the global distribution area of kites throughout the Middle East, the Caucasus and Central Asia. This hunting interpretation raises questions about the transformation of the landscape by human groups and the consequent anthropogenic impacts on local ecological equilibrium during different periods of the Holocene. Finally, the role of trapping in the hunting strategies of prehistoric, protohistoric and historic human groups is addressed. Archaeological surveys and excavations in the region of Al-Thlaythuwat, modes of occupation and structural analysis of camps of nomadic pastoralists of the Chalcolithic Early Bronze Age in a desert periphery of southern Jordan. The study of the sector of Al-Thlaythuwat, located in the south of the basin of Al-Yafur, has made it possible to identify the broad lines of the methods of occupation of a still unexplored region of desert peripheries of Jordanian territory during the Chalcolithic Early Bronze. The in-depth structural analysis of the stone enclosure installations, characteristic of a nomadic pastoral human settlement, and the use of statistical tools for classification and prioritization of occupation have demonstrated the relevance of a spatialized territorial approach, integrating qualitative and quantitative data from surveys for a restitution of ancient settlement phenomena in a desert margin zone. Despite the apparent uniformity of the corpus of sites studied, the micro-regional study makes it possible to identify a great diversity in the detail of the organization of the camps of these populations. The interpretative diagrams revealed make it possible to underline a variability in the temporality of occupation of the establishments, the composition of the human groups present and the methods of practice of the mode of pastoral subsistence. The study of the phenomenon of funerary megalithism, the development of desert exchange systems as well as the elaboration of a chronological sequence of the occupation are some of the major themes identified by current research on the occupation of the desert peripheries of southeastern Jordan, which are also developed in this discussion. The environment and its settlement, methodological tools for a regional study. The environment, a strong geographical and environmental determinism. 5. The region of Al-Thlaythuwat is located south of the basin of Al-Yafur, halfway between Ma'an and Al-Mudawara on the Saudi border. It is totally inserted in the current desert landscape dominated by hyperaridity. 2 main factors guided the choice towards this study area. Adams et al. 1977. Ingraham et al. 1981. Gilmore et al. 1982. 6. The region is located at the crossroads of 2 major circulation axes dictated by the topography, Fig. 1 and Fig. 2. It is in fact at the strategic crossroads of the road which emerges from the north of Saudi Arabia and forks on the one hand towards the Transjordanian plateau via the basin of Al-Yafur and, on the other hand, towards the valley of the Jordan by the breakthrough of Wadi Rum. To the south, Wadi Hizma borders the eastern flank of the Hijaz mountain range. This region of the northwestern province of Arabia is the one that has delivered the most numerous attestations of an occupation attributed to the Neolithic and the Chalcolithic 8. The Darb el-Ha, NX 982. 6. The region is located at the crossroads of 2 major circulation axes dictated by the topography, Fig. 1 and Fig. 2. It is in fact at the strategic crossroads of the road which emerges from the north of Saudi Arabia and forks on the one hand towards the Transjordanian plateau via the basin of Al Yafar and, on the other hand, towards the valley of the Jordan by the breakthrough of Wadi Rum. To the south, Wadi Hizma borders the eastern flank of the Hijaz mountain range. This region of the northwestern province of Arabia is the one that has delivered the most numerous attestations of an occupation attributed to the Neolithic and the Chalcolithic 8. The Dar Belha, NX.